Welcome to the Winning Edge podcast, where we share focus, fueling, and faith-filled stories and strategies to give young athletes the tools they need to become the best version of themselves as athletes and individuals.
What you eat and how you think can transform your athletic performance and overall well-being. Whether you're an athlete, coach, or fitness enthusiast looking to gain that mental edge and optimize your health, this podcast is for you. We are your hosts. I'm Lindsay, former collegiate athlete, coach, and educator and educational coach for over 20 years, and a mom of 2 young athletes.
And I'm Stacy, registered dietitian nutritionist of over 18 years and also a mom of 2 young athletes.
Before I even start this intro, I just need to say that this week has been a hot mess for myself. I think a lot of people have felt, even at work, talking to coworkers, that this week has been a bit of a dumpster fire. So
Everyone's getting sick. It's just like back to school time.
Yes, we're like almost, 3.5 weeks into the school year.
Some just starting back to school in this area.
Yep.
So yeah.
And everyone it's end of summer. It's hot. So hot outside.
We wish we had a fake fall because at least fake fall would be like
it's just been a rough
relief.
week.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff going on in people's lives that, we obviously don't know, but like everyone has their stuff they're going through. And so I want to talk about something that's kind of been on our heart. And we have talked about this a few times, like, oh, we should do a podcast on this. And then we chicken out.
Yeah.
So we're going to be brave and we're going to do this because it is absolutely what everybody thinks and feels, I think, most of the time or at one point in their lives. So we're going to be brave and do this. And we're going to talk about what it is when you feel that tension between being called to do something, but not having a clear picture of how in the heck you're supposed to get there. And sometimes God places something deep in our hearts, whether it's a dream or a goal that we have or a project or not even something big. Sometimes it's like coaching, you're called to coach or you're asked to serve on this committee and you're just like, how am I even supposed to do that? Right?
Yeah.
And you want a roadmap or you want instructions or someone who's given you like a step-by-step plan of how to do it. And there's just not one.
Or if you're me, you want to know exactly. You need to know exactly what all those steps look like.
You need all the stuff. My gosh. If
all don't know, listening.
Yeah. If you don't know Stacy, listen, we are very much alike, but we are also very different. I'm kind of like, whatever, it is what it is, which I was never like that. Like, it's okay, just trust the timing. It's all good. And Stacy's like, what are we doing now? What's happening? Da, 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 da. It's just so because of her job.
Yeah.
Right. And I think all of our experiences in life make us exactly who we are, works of everything we've ever gone through. And I think that's beautiful. So I think it's nice to just kind of talk about like, there's no roadmap. For most everything we do in life, there is not a playbook.
It's kind of like we joked the one episode of like, my parents always used to say growing up, there's no perfect parent handbook. If you find it, definitely show it to me because I missed that in my onboarding memo. But I think it's so funny, those that are listening, because Lindsay came over tonight and we were talking about podcasts and how we were going to kick off this next week. And she's like, this is what I want to do. And I just had to laugh because those of you that know sort of God winks in your life and the way that he speaks to us, like it's really interesting to even be sitting here because I have felt this tension of feeling very called to do something, even with the work that we're doing with SPAN and just this pull of like, well, what's that picture look like? And what's the next step? And so even the fact that Lindsay came over tonight and was like, hey, we're doing this podcast. I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I hear you chattering at me.
Yeah.
And I think it's sometimes I do think that it can feel really scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it can faith and trust can feel like this, okay, well, we don't know what's coming next. But I think about the people that God has used most powerfully in scripture, and they rarely had it all figured out.
No.
I think about Abraham, and, he was called not even knowing where he was going and what that final destination looked like. I think about Moses when he was asked to lead Israel out of Egypt, and he didn't know how in the world the Red Sea was going to be parted. I mean, there's a lot of sea stories, parting water stories in the Bible, but like, I also think about Joshua. It's funny because like at the moment, Lindsay and I were kicking off SPAN, a group of close friends and family, we were all doing a Bible study on Joshua. And I felt like God was like nudging me at that point. Joshua didn't know when he was asked to cross the Jordan, which was flooded above the banks of where it normally sat, you guys, if you read the Bible, how in the world that was going to part and how he was going to get all of these people across. And I mean, think about this man. He's standing there in Moses, like on the heels of having to now be a leader. And he didn't he's probably feeling super unqualified, right? Called, but unqualified. And so I just think about how throughout scripture, God really powerfully used people who probably also didn't feel like they were qualified to be there. I think about the disciples. I mean, these men were fishermen, and that was like the lowliest of the classes. And it's like these men were fishermen who dropped everything they had to come and follow Jesus, and they had no idea what that picture was going to look like, but they followed him with full faith and obedience. And I think this makes me think about the only thing they had in common. It wasn't a roadmap.
No,
it was they had faith in an amazing God that we serve. And that faith leads us to trust him. And then obedience is this natural response to then that trust.
Yes.
Like, we know he's good. We have read the Bible, and throughout history, he has proved he's good.
Yes.
So then why wouldn't we trust him?
The question. Why would you not? Why would you not? Why would you not just say, I am going to do this, and I don't know how it's going to work out, and I don't know where it's going, but I'm going to trust that there is a purpose for this, and it's okay to not know.
Yeah, I think that comes down to, like, despite what it might look like to someone else on the outside looking in, like, walking in faith and walking in trust and obedience, no matter what our circumstances are, we can still choose to trust and follow him.
Absolutely. And it doesn't always look or feel like how you thought it should.
Yeah, I mean, I think of literally
picture perfect.
I laugh because I think about the fact that we were studying Joshua when you and I kind of launched into this whole, hey, we're going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because it's like, it was one obstacle after another for Joshua. It's not like God parted the Jordan and then he got across and then they, conquered the first. No, they literally came to the highest walls that they would have to face and had to march around a city 7 times, which I'm sure when God said to Joshua, hey, I'm going to have you march around the city with these massive walls 7 times doing nothing. Why? He's like thinking, what do you even mean? That sounds like the craziest plan I've ever heard. But yet it's interesting how many times in our lives that when we feel called and we're being obedient, that can look absurd to someone else on the outside looking in.
For sure. I think most people are perceived as crazy when they're doing something that seems unknown, or it's not normal, or it's not what's expected. It's like, oh, well, are you out of your mind? Like, have you lost your mind? What are you doing? How many people have said to us, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We're like, wow, well, who's your target? Well, we're like athletes and their families. Well, but you're doing like nutrition and mindset, and there's a spiritual connection to it. Like, shouldn't it be one? Well, we're just kind of going because this is what we're called to do.
Yeah.
We don't know the outcome. We don't know where it's going. We don't know what it'll be like in 5 years. We don't even know what it's gonna look like in 6 months.
Yeah, but this was a hard thing for me because I felt like this was something God had put on my heart probably almost 3-4 years ago, and we've talked about this. And I just drug my feet, and I feel like he's kind of just I'm the child who's kicking and screaming, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna come again and try to get you to be obedient with this thing. And I just kind of had drug my feet. And then it was interesting how we connected, and then you're like, let's do it. Let's get it done.
Absolutely.
And I think, definitely just walking. What's funny is as we have sort of walked in obedience, interesting doors have opened up. We've had great people already come on our podcast.
Oh my goodness. It's been such a blessing. And whether, this turns into something incredible and huge, or whether it's just we have gained these connections and learned information and shared with people, then that's what it is. That's what it's going to be made of. But I think there's big things.
And at the end of the day, I think it's done what I felt like was our calling, which was to glorify him.
Absolutely.
And so that, as crazy as it sounds, with all that we're doing, getting people to understand that there's so much more to the weekends that we spend out doing all these sports things than just the game.
Oh, for sure. And you're talking about all the obstacles that people in the Bible have been like, well, how am I going to do that? What are you talking about? It's crazy. Athletes go through the same thing. We go through the same thing. Athletes, it's like, well, I can't do that. Well, don't say you can't. Like, here, your coach is trying to get you to understand you can keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's nothing new under the sun. I think about that biblically, where I'm like, if you really go back to the Bible and you study it and you understand the word, there is nothing like the problems we're dealing with. There's problems or proxies for in the history of the Bible if you actually study. And so it's why it's such a powerful reminder, I think, of what you're getting to, of why being in the word multiple times a week.
Yeah.
If you're a parent listening, if you're a coach who's listening, who's fostering over kids' lives, if you're an athlete who's
Yeah.
listening, why being in the Word is so important because it gives us really great direction for
Mhm.
how we live our lives. There's not a
Mhm.
new problem that really
No.
hasn't already been seen. There's some crazy problems if you read the
Yeah.
Bible that people have had to deal with.
Yes.
And like,
Yes.
but they walked in faith and they walked in
Mhm.
obedience. And I'm not saying everything always turned out great for them.
No, and not everything is going to always turn out great, but I think that sometimes it's really easy to be complacent and just be stuck in what's comfortable. But
Yeah.
God doesn't call us to stay in comfort.
Yeah.
And that's actually it's interesting because so last month, um, I was at a batting practice for August and his stance needed an adjustment. So his coach was like, and I love his coach, he's a great batting coach. And he said, hey, we need to change your stance up just a little bit. And so one thing I noticed is that first of all, he has the flexibility of a steel pipe. He is the least flexible kid I have ever been
You're
around.
like,
And I'm
touch your
like,
toes. And he's like,
he
I
can't.
cannot do
He
that. I
couldn't.
think
He
most guys
couldn't.
can't touch their toes. Can we just like divert on this for a minute?
I
Like,
don't
my
know.
husband is a very strong, physically active man. And I'm like, if he had to touch his toes to save his life, this might be a deal breaker.
Maybe not, but like a 11-year-old, 12-year-old athlete, like you should be able to touch your toes. You got to be flexible. I was like, wow, that's pretty bad. But then he said to his coach, and this is coming back to kind of hone in on what you were saying. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel comfortable. I was on my phone doing stuff for Span, and I heard him say that, and I was like, oh, whoop. No. I don't interject. I just sit there and do my own thing and hang with tea. But I was like,
Except
I have
Lindsay,
to
you're
because
like, wait,
I am a mindset coach. I've been a coach. I've been the athlete. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm about to be that mom. And I said, that's the entire point.
yeah,
Literally
he's
said,
fixing
that's the
something.
entire point, August. And his coach looked at me and he's way younger. So I'm probably like, the old crazy lady up there. But his coach looked at me and I was like, hey, can I just say something real quick? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And I go over to the net, like got out of the comfy chair, went to the net and stood there and grabbed the net. And I was like, look at me. I was like, that is the entire point, that it's not comfortable. And I said, you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. So August is very, well, he's very smart. He's very
Yeah.
perceptive. But he kind of looked at me like processing it. And I said, comfortability is not always a good thing. It doesn't mean you're doing it right because it's comfortable.
And it doesn't mean you're actually going to get to progress. I think
No,
sometimes that's
no.
the work that we put in, that a little bit extra that's slightly uncomfortable is what
Yes.
actually leads us to
That's what
see
pushes you.
a
That's what pushes
result.
you. Like
Yeah.
if you're working out, they say no pain, no gain. There is a point to that. Like you have to feel your muscles push past their limits to get that process. You have to get the progress. You have to work hard and maybe at the end of practice you feel like, man, I can't even use my legs. I feel like jello. Well, that means you worked hard, right? So
Yeah.
there's going to be growth there. But I told them that growth and change are happening when you are uncomfortable. And I think that as humans, as adults, all of us,
Oh, I
we
love
prefer
comfort.
comfort.
Yeah.
We prefer comfort, routine. We will literally settle for something less than what we are capable of and less than we deserve. And most importantly, we'll settle for less than who God has called us to be because comfortability is so nice.
Easy. Oh
It's
man, it's
easy.
nice, Lindsay.
It's so easy. It's so nice, right? It's easy to show up to school as a kid and just do the bare minimum and still pass if that's what you can do. Because why would you push yourself to do more?
Yeah.
But then you're not living
Or
to
to
your full
fit in
potential.
versus like standing out when he
Right.
calls you to be fearlessly different.
Yep.
It's just easy to go with the flow, even if the flow isn't what God has called you to be or to do or to act. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good kind of reminder of like what that walk can sometimes
Yeah.
be uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. And you think about it, as adults, it's even like, are you comfortable in a really terrible relationship? And that's where you're going to stay because it's just comfortable and it's easier to stay in it than to do something that's going to change that work relationship you have. Like maybe you need to find a different job. Maybe you need to adjust a relationship in your life and have boundaries or end that relationship with a friend if it's not healthy for you. Like all these things that we do out of comfortability do not allow us to become the better versions of ourselves and have that growth.
Or sometimes, and we've talked about this like in the term of our athletes and parents who are
Hmm.
listening, like, one of my husband and I's like biggest arguments that we got in when the kids were younger and in sports was around the comfort of we were with the team for a really long time
Yeah.
with our oldest son, and wonderful team, wonderful coach, wonderful families. But if I'm honest, like it came to the point where he wasn't growing anymore and he
Right.
really wasn't being challenged to what his full athletic potential was. And
Yep.
so again, it's like it was uncomfortable and it was unknown, but we moved over to Texas 12, who we love, and like he has had a phenomenal learning experience
Yeah.
with them that I think like I couldn't imagine it being any different today, but
Yeah.
that change was so scary.
It's hard, and change is scary. And, my household, the boys and I are very much like, we're going to do what scares us. After my divorce, actually, that's what my New Year's resolution was. It wasn't like a whole bunch of resolutions about eat this, not that, whatever. It was do the things that scare me.
Yeah, do the things that are like
Do the
big
things
and
that challenge me,
challenging.
that scare me, that push me and grow me, because I have to set that example for my
When
kids.
I think sometimes even for our young athletes, like stepping outside of even faith, but thinking about just something as simple as
Changing a
being in
position.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, changing a
Yeah.
position, changing their sport. Like
Yep.
it can feel really uncomfortable
Hmm.
at first. Um, but there's so much growth opportunity in there to be a more well-rounded athlete.
Absolutely.
There's so much, even just like doing routine things. Like I have to laugh because, you heard Clay tonight as he was leaving where he's like, I hit the ball, where it's
I
like been such this long
know.
slump for him
Yeah.
of like, but I think he feared failure so much
Yep.
that he took that into
Well,
his.
I'm gonna be honest, the fear of failure will sink your boat faster than taking any risk that's out there.
For sure.
The
Yeah.
fear of failure is what destroys the possibilities that people
Well, and
have
we see that with our athletes. I mean, if you step up to the
every
plate
time.
thinking about how you're going to fail,
You've
if you
already
get ready to kick that goal and you're thinking about how the goalie's going to block it, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I always say to my boys, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah. 1,000%. And I think that with athletes, there is the mindset piece of the game is so powerful.
Yeah.
The mindset can make or break an athlete. And so helping athletes understand, like, being uncomfortable is a good thing. Taking risks is a good thing. You cannot be afraid of failure because it's inevitable. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to fail a million times in different ways. And it's not necessarily like a total failure. It's just the failure might be a mistake, an error, a setback, an obstacle that you have to overcome that you fall short on. And all of that is so important in that growth process. And so when athletes can have that mindset of, it's uncomfortable. I don't know what I'm doing in this position, but coach asked me to, so I'm going to step up. I'm going to learn it.
Yeah. And God gave me this natural talent. So it goes back
Yes.
to like, this thing is scary and it's
Hmm.
challenging and it's fearful, but I have faith that like I'm here on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm an athlete on purpose. Like, yeah, again, going back to our bigger.
Yep.
Yeah, there's gonna be times that it's scary. There's gonna be times you get to the other
But
side and there's
that's
a
fine.
Jericho and you're gonna have to face it. But it's
Yeah.
like, how do you then take the
Yep.
mentality of it's okay
Hmm.
because I've faced big, scary things before
Yes.
and I serve an awesome God who's got me and I'm gonna do what it is that He put me here to do. Like I'm
Yes.
gonna just I'm gonna focus on the moment that I'm in and do the job of what I'm doing and not
Hmm.
worry about all the other things.
Because success lies on the other side of your fear.
Oh,
Always.
oh my god,
Oh.
yeah, but that first scariest part is, like, I can't imagine I think about this with the parting of the Red Sea, like, I can't
Hmm.
imagine how fearful that first step was. I think
Right.
about the parting of the Jordan, like, and it
So
being
then
over its
so then
banks, like,
what does that say about our fears?
adult
Small.
kiddos yeah,
Yeah,
like
in
yeah,
comparison, our fears are so small, but that doesn't change the weight that they have on our minds. That doesn't change the power that that fear has over us.
for sure.
It doesn't matter how big or how small that fear is, it's still making a
Well,
big
and what's
impact.
so crazy sometimes is, like and I don't know, this is something you and I have talked a lot about, it's like where my fear leads me to go to extremes,
Mhm.
like but the most likely thing that's gonna happen is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not gonna be the worst detrimental thing, it's probably not gonna be
No.
the best thing that I imagine, but it will be somewhere in the middle, and that's how it is probably for most people, where
I
it's like, we create
100%.
these stories and narratives, and our
Yes.
mind can have such a powerful
Well,
hold.
I'm a mindset coach for athletes. I have been basically a personal mindset coach for thousands of students over the last 21 years, and I still go home and I still have to fight my headspace.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot
Well,
of
it's a
people
different
bring that
battle for
up.
every person.
Everybody, yeah, and the circumstances for the battles are different, or the cause of it, or the reason, or what the battle may be. We all have to fight our internal dialogue
Yeah.
in one way or another at different points in our lives.
And I do believe that's where so many of this spiritual battles are fought is in
Mhm.
this like war that we wage between our ears of like
Oh, for sure.
reminding ourselves who we are and
Yeah.
whose we are and just like
Yeah.
we're here on mission. If we're walking in faith, if we're walking in
Mhm.
obedience,
Mhm.
it's really not as scary. Like to your point, like
No.
man, our battles really don't look
We're not
that
having to
big.
wait for a sea to be parted.
Yeah, totally.
We're just like, "Oh," it's very small, but again, it doesn't change the impact that it has on us.
Yeah.
Fear still have a part of your brain is activated in fears and phobias. It sends signals throughout your whole body and it sends you into a fight or flight mode. And whether that's, you're at a sport experiencing that or it's a big life decision, you are in that same space in your brain.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, really interesting to think about. You know, one of the things that you've talked about with me and we've kind of been discussing is the coaching aspect of that and how coaches it's a calling. I'm going to say
Yeah.
education's also a calling. If you're not called to be a teacher, you have no business being there because it
It
will
is a
eat you
hard
up and
profession.
spit
Yeah.
you out. Like,
Oh my
we
gosh.
need so
And
many teachers that are great teachers, but we need teachers that are like, they love kids. Like, I go into work and I've always taken this that I want to be the person that I needed when I was younger
yeah.
as a teacher, as motivation. Same thing with coaching. I wanted to be a coach because I wanted to be that coach that I had. I had awesome coaches almost all the way through. I had one that, oof, not so good, but that's the one that I
Sometimes you
learned
learn more
from.
from
That,
the
yeah, it's
yeah,
like, I am
like
not going to be like that coach, right? But coaches, it's a calling. And a lot of times coaches go into it and they're like, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I have what it takes to be a coach. The same way that we think, do we have what it takes to run span?
yeah.
Like, do we know what we're
This is a big
doing?
mission. Yeah.
Again, there's no roadmap. There's no list of instructions. There's not a manual, and there shouldn't be one
Yeah.
because God's in the driver's seat, not us.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like this is a beautiful kickoff to what's an upcoming series that we're about to launch
Mhm.
for those that are listening, which is, again, there's not, and I think this series will really be focused on our coaches.
Mhm.
And it'll really be about diving into kind of youth sports through the eyes of a coach. So even if you're a parent or an athlete, you can still tune in. But for our coaches that are listening, we hope that this will provide a really great way to really just pour into you
Mhm.
as you are coaching young athletes. We're going to hear from a bunch of coaches in this space. Like we're encouraging you guys to go back and listen to episode 6, which is the podcast that we did with Jess, who is an amazing coach who truly walks with, trust and faith in the Lord and the way
Mhm.
she coaches her athletes. She talks about her experience as a professional collegiate athlete and like that experience as an athlete versus as a coach and how much she learned and how differently she coached. And just, again, I think to your point, Lindsay, God doesn't expect us to have it all mapped out. Some of you are taking on coaching roles and you've not done this,
Yep.
forever. It's new to you. Some of you have done it for a long time, but you're wanting to make sure that you are kind of pouring into your kiddos in the right way. And so I'm excited for this. Like, I'm
I am
excited to
too.
do a coach's point of view. We're going to
Yeah.
cover a lot of fun things. You want to talk a little bit about like some of the things that we'll cover in the next several series?
Yeah, so you talked about like the different segment types, but getting coaches that can share their experiences as athletes and then how that shaped them into becoming coaches that
Yeah.
really are there to make a positive impact on the lives of the athletes, not just make them a better player. And so I think that'll be I think that'll be really powerful for our listeners that might be new to coaching too,
Yeah.
or they've been coaching for a long time and they're kind of losing that joy.
I also think too, athletes listening
Yes.
and parents listening, I think sometimes we don't always consider the coach's perspective.
No.
I will be honest with you. So I coached our son's summer basketball league this
Mhm.
past year, and it was, one of my first times, except for probably when I was back in high school, that I have volunteered to coach kiddos like in the sport capacity. It's such a humbling experience for
Yep.
those parents that have never coached. Like it's a different thing to be on that side of the court, that side of the
Yeah.
field. It just gives you a different respect. So I think even listening to some of our coaches will give our parents and athlete a different
Absolutely.
level of respect.
Absolutely. Because, coaches are a good coach that's doing this. They need you to trust them too. Like they spend a lot of time trying to build the trust amongst the team and the players with them and create that dynamic in order for them to be successful. But it doesn't work when parents are basically like breaking all that apart when they leave practice,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's good for parents to hear that because there's a lot that goes into coaching. There's a lot of stress in coaching. You're balancing athletes' mindsets, you're balancing their view of themselves
Yeah.
and how they go home and think about themselves as an individual.
Well, but you're managing the individual and then
Yeah.
the power of the collective.
Yes.
So,
It is really hard. I think my best coaching experience ever was when I taught and coached at Alto ISD. And basketball's not a thing in East Texas compared to like I grew up in Connecticut. Like
oh, it's
it's
a
basketball
thing. Yeah.
country. You know what I mean? Girls basketball. What do you hello? Like say less. There's nothing else. So when I was coaching there and it was like, oh well, we're softball players and we're cheerleaders. And I was like, we are not gonna use pom poms. We are dribbling a ball. Some of them had never dribbled a basketball before. They I don't know, maybe they watched too much football. They thought it was a full contact sport. Like it was a hot mess express. We were 0-9 my first season, but it didn't matter because over that season there was growth. But I got to learn where those girls were as athletes, as players, and I knew who they were from teaching them too.
Yeah.
Like I got to work with them during the day and on the court and seeing their growth over the next season when we tied for district,
Yeah.
it was like this is why I love working with athletes because you do have to build strong relationships with them. You do have to get to know who they are as individuals. And that was like the culmination of getting to be a teacher and a coach at the same time.
Yeah.
That was my favorite experience ever.
I love that.
And I still talk to those girls. Like I went to a wedding. I tell babies that they've had. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I think
Next.
that's the power. So, like, some of it we'll cover in the next couple episodes is like, what is the coach's real
Yeah.
role? Which it goes beyond just like the track, the court, the field. We'll
Yeah.
talk about some common challenges that coaches face and
Mhm.
hear this directly from the coaches. So, all
Mhm.
parents, all athletes, y'all tune in. We'll talk
Yes.
about building connections and trust. I think that's a huge one, Lindsay. And those are
Yes.
things you build for life. They're not just
Mhm.
the season. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome. We're going to talk about tips for communicating with coaches. So we'll have coaches come on and talk about what do they want your athletes to do when your athlete has an
Yes.
issue or you have an issue, like how should you be addressing that? And then we'll talk about what does coaching mean beyond sports and like mentoring, truly mentoring these athletes for life. And so for those that are coaches, we hope you'll love this series. We're really
Yeah.
excited about it
I'm
as
super
coaches
excited.
ourselves.
Yeah.
For parents, for athletes, we hope there's still something great for you guys to learn in it too. But
Mhm.
stay tuned because you'll see a lot more coming from us in the next couple of weeks on social and in our podcast, really just to honor all of our coaches and kind of just in gratitude for them, really
Absolutely.
show the youth sports world from their point of view.
Yeah. And I do want to just wrap up with this final thought that sometimes the scariest part in every aspect of life is taking the first step without knowing if step 2 or 3 or 4 are going to be there. But that's where your faith becomes real and has the most power because that's when you have to say, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't even know if I can do this, but you've put it on my heart and I am going to trust you and walk in faith. And so here's the beautiful thing about that is that God doesn't expect us to have it mapped out. He expects us to trust him because he already has it mapped out for us.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and for all of our coaches, tune in. If you're feeling afraid about how do I mentor my kiddos? How do I coach them mentally? Like, we're
Yeah.
going to share a lot of tips on that too, just to
Mhm.
help you guys as we talk through this.
Yay, I'm excited. So stay tuned for future podcasts where we will bring on exciting guests. Coaches are coming up, and all kinds of other professional athletes, dietitians, psychologists, and more.
What you eat and how you think can transform your athletic performance and overall well being. Whether you're an athlete, coach, or fitness enthusiast looking to gain that mental edge and optimize your health, this podcast is for you.
Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media channels to get more exclusive content, including TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X at @span_athletics.
Until next time, stay faithful, stay fueled, and remain focused on your goals.